Treadstone. Are you Treadstone?
Started Treadstone.
Is she running Treadstone?
He shut down Treadstone.
Treadstone? Treadstone. Are you running Treadstone?
Look, how wide are we digging?
What do you mean, how wide? Just get me everything. Treadstone, Blackbriar, Outcome, Larks, all the beta programs, and that means take it all the way back to Emerald Lake. I want all points of convergence. I want all research personnel.
In the early 1950s, during the Korean War, a Stanford researcher named Dr. Dan Hillcott was called to the United States Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases to investigate a viral outbreak that had left multiple scientists dead. While examining the victims, Dr. Hillcott stumbled on a way to use viruses to manipulate the human genome. This discovery opened the door for the military to begin experimenting with modifying soldiers' genes and creating super soldiers. Hillcott was put to work at a pharmaceutical company in Manila to develop the genetic programs, along with Dr. Albert Hirsch, who handled the Black Ops side of the programs. This work would eventually be known as the beta programs. The first attempt at actual superhumans in the field was known as Emerald Lake. Agents would need to take a series of pills, one for physical abilities and the other for cognitive abilities. Unfortunately, this was only a temporary boost, and the soldiers would need to continuously take the pills in order to maintain their edge. Even worse, they eventually learned that withdrawal from the pills would mentally regress them further than when they started the program. Because of these issues, Emerald Lake was shut down, and the next series of projects, Beta 1, began. The next round of beta programs was run by multiple government agencies, the Treadstone itself being the CIA's version. The Beta 1 updates made some significant improvements over its Beta 0 predecessors. Beta 1 was a permanent change to the agent's genome, meaning they no longer needed to continually take pills in order to maintain their mental and physical advantages, and that they weren't at risk for regressing if they couldn't get their hands on them. Beta 1 did come with its own series of side effects, though. The permanent changes brought on constant headaches, fatigue, and light sensitivity, and in rare cases, amnesia. The most notable soldier to enter the Beta 1 program under Treadstone was David Webb, alias Jason Bourne. After a botched mission and the ensuing fallout caused by Bourne, Treadstone and the other Beta 1 programs were scrapped and covered up. Now let's take a look at the hierarchy of Treadstone and how each character fared after the Bourne identity. The founder of Treadstone itself was CIA analyst Richard Webb, the father of David Webb, also known as Jason Bourne. He was killed by the main antagonist in the Jason Bourne movie, Robert Dewey, in The Asset, after he refused to allow David to join the program. After his murder, Dewey used his death to convince David to join, after convincing him that his father died from a terrorist attack. Dr. Albert Hirsch was a good friend of Dr. Hillcott, and was instrumental in training the Treadstone assassins. We see him use sleep deprivation and torture to mentally break down David Webb and create the obedient killer he became, known as Jason Bourne. Bourne later confronts Hirsch, who helps him unlock more memories about his training, but Bourne leaves without harming him. Later on in the Bourne legacy, Hirsch and Hillcott are both compromised when photos of them leak on the internet, risking the ongoing Beta 2 projects, and both are subsequently killed to cover up the leaks. Ward Abbott was the head of operations for Treadstone and the main liaison between the people directly running the programs and the heads of the CIA and congressional committees. This meant that he was in a position to cover for Treadstone's less savory details and making it seem like it was just a simple training program. It also let him personally hide from oversight, take advantage of the amount of money passing to secretive places. He was very hands-off with Treadstone, ensuring that he had plausible deniability if things went sideways. Abbott used these advantages to personally profit, stealing tens of millions of dollars with Russian Yuri Gretkov in the 90s. when Russian politician Vladimir Nevsky opposed the privatized oil pipelines that made Gretkov rich and powerful. Abbott bribed his underling, Alexander Conklin, to kill Nevsky via a faked training program performed by newly trained Jason Bourne. Abbott was eventually ended himself when Jason Bourne confronted him in the Bourne supremacy, revealing that he was aware of the Nevsky murder and was ready to go public with the conspiracy. Alexander Conklin was the field director of Treadstone, meaning he was the one who personally gave out assignments to the Treadstone assassins and ran the day-to-day operations from this Treadstone headquarters in Langley. Due to his failure to recapture Jason Bourne as in his liability in the Nevsky conspiracy, he was murdered by Mannheim, one of his own Treadstone assassins, under direction of Ward Abbott. Daniels was a recruiter for Treadstone, finding soldiers that he thought would make good Treadstone operatives. Though he played a smaller role in the films, he played a large role in the creation of Jason Bourne. He initially recruited Bourne for the role, eventually leading to the death of Bourne's father and Treadstone founder Richard Webb, and was there when Bourne was going through his initiation. Later on in the Bourne ultimatum, Daniels seems to have second thoughts about his involvement in the program and begins leaking information to journalist Simon Ross. He flees to Morocco where he wires some money to attempt to hide away, but is found by a Blackbriar operative and murdered. Parsons is a Treadstone field operative whose job was to help the assassins in any way they need while monitoring their health and performance. Nikki is somewhat stuck in the middle during the films, both beholden to the CIA due to her job, but also seeing before many others that Jason Bourne was confused about who he was and why Treadstone was after them, as opposed to some others who thought he had fled or turned. Nikki was killed during the final film in the series, Jason Bourne, as she and Bourne were on a motorcycle attempting to flee from an assassin. Daniel Zorn was Conklin and later Abbott's assistant. He didn't make orders himself, but he did have a hand in carrying out orders, such as instructing Mannheim to murder Conklin at the request of Abbott and shutting down Treadstone afterwards. In the Bourne supremacy, Zorn shares his doubt that the explosions that killed several agents was caused by Bourne, as the explosives were set in an amateurish way compared to something that Bourne would have carried out himself. He unfortunately made the mistake of showing these inconsistencies to Abbott before bringing it to the rest of the CIA. It turned out that the Nevsky files were stolen under Abbott's orders, and he killed Zorn immediately to keep him from telling anyone else. Other than Jason Bourne, Treadstone's stable of assassins didn't fare much better than their administrators. Codenames Professor, Castell, and Jarda were killed by Bourne over the course of the films. Mannheim himself wasn't killed on screen, but we can assume from the conversation between Jarda and Bourne that he was not around for one reason or another by the time of the Bourne supremacy. Coinciding with the takedown of Treadstone, another series of beta programs were launched to fill the void, most notably the CIA's Blackbriar and Outcome from the JSOC. Blackbriar and Outcome were designed as a response to the Treadstone catastrophe, hoping to fix the weaknesses that plagued Treadstone, especially the persistent headaches and amnesia. Outcome diverted the most from Treadstone, choosing to alter its agents' chromosomes to achieve the mental and physical gains that Treadstone had achieved with the viruses. Outcome agents were also more flexible in the way they could handle confrontation, attempting to talk their way out of situations instead of always resorting to violence. After Blackbriar had a similar fate to Treadstone at the hands of Jason Bourne, Outcome was also erased to keep the next round of beta programs from being exposed as well. Blackbriar and Outcome led the way for Operation Larks, hoping to be Treadstone without the inconsistencies and Outcome without the emotional noise. Lark's agents were more advanced, more violent, and more ruthless than any of its beta predecessors, as well as doing away with the social training from Outcome.
The Treadstone project has actually already been terminated. It was designed primarily as a sort of advanced game program. We'd hoped it might build into a good training platform, but quite honestly, for a strictly theoretical exercise, the cost-benefit ratio was just too high. It's all but decommissioned at this point.
All right. What's next?
Okay, this is Blackbriar. Blackbriar is a joint DoD communications program that we really feel has good traction to it. It's got legs. It'll run and run. Combines elements of